Here's a couple statistics. 70% of change management initiatives fail because of poor internal communication. Companies as big as 100,000 employees waste $62 million a year because of ineffective internal communication. Companies of 100 employees, 420,000. The numbers are staggering. And the more we can understand that if we can figure out how to communicate in a way that not, I said it, how come they don't understand it? To wait a second here. Did everybody understand what the goal is? Does everybody understand what the vision, the purpose, why we're doing what they're doing, why their effort matters, what they individually need to do in order to help us all achieve our goal? And what do we need to do to take care of the customer? And if we can change the mindset to that, as companies, we have a far better chance of surviving.
Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show where military mindset meets the spirit of the puppy. I'm your host, Jason Skisick, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and each week I sit down and bring you the stories of visionaries who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and review. This is the best way to stay in the loop when we drop new content. If you've listened to this show long, you know how much I love things like strong mission, core values, and tribal culture within companies. My guest today has taken these concepts and elevated them to an art form. Ben Baker is the owner of Your Brand Marketing, the author of 2 books, a podcaster, and has over 25 years of experience helping companies reduce wasted time, effort, and money by improving internal communication strategy and implementation. He is passionate about what he does, and it shows. I am beyond excited to discuss some of my favorite topics with a true expert. Please welcome my friend, Ben Baker. Ben, how are you?
Jason, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited about this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. I've got the comfy chair out. I think we're going to have a good conversation. I'm just settling myself in, ready to go, and let's do this.
Yeah. So for starters, I'm so excited too. For starters, tell the listeners kind of where you're coming from. Give us your entrepreneurial origin story, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, my entrepreneurial origin story, I guess, goes before I was an entrepreneur. I got out of the high-tech industry about 97. 1997, I was working for a small little $12 billion company. I was managing a $100 million client, and I spent 200 plus days a year in the air. If you ever seen the movie Up in the Air with George Clooney, that was me. I was would show up at the airport without a clue sometimes where I was going next. I thought I was going to New York, and then I'd end up in LA. My ticket had been changed. My client meeting happened and I'd find out about it when I was in the air. So I got to a point where I was going, all right, this is a divorce waiting to happen. And my wife and I had a conversation about it. I had a conversation with my boss, and we got to the point where we sat there and said, okay, either you're going to double my salary to pay for the divorce, or you're going to cut my travel days in half. And they weren't willing to do either. So I was blessed enough to get a nice severance package on my way. And that got me into the direct mail business. The direct mail business was because people were looking for high-tech people in the marketing sphere. And, that led me to a company called VCR Print over the years. And I did a lot of print management work with them. We worked with the casino business. We worked with the grocery industry and did a lot of work with brand, with messaging, with marketing, with, how do we get people to understand who you are, what you do, why you do it, and why they should care. And that's where my entrepreneurial journey started, because my boss at the time, I was a very minority shareholder in the company. He was looking to take the company in one direction. I saw it going in another. And I really didn't want to be the last person standing when the lights closed. And I walked into his office and I said, remember that shotgun clause we signed about 10 years ago? He says, yeah. I said, today is the day. Well, that day was January the 5th, 2008. If you can think of a dumber day to start a new company, I don't know what it was. Right in the heart of the recession, right in the middle of everybody sitting there freaking out because they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's next. And I took my client list and I walked out the door and I sent everybody an email that said, same great service, brand new name. And 90% of my clients came with me. And we're talking, government industries. We're talking about healthcare authorities. We're talking about Fortune 500 companies, because it was all about the relationship that I formed with these companies. And 15 years later, a lot of those companies are still with me. What we do has changed. How we work with them has changed. What their goals and aspirations have changed, but we're still with them. And, I've been very blessed that way.
The first thing I want to do is congratulate you on making a difficult decision quickly, making a decision that was, ethically something you believed in, and maybe relationships status, something you believed in, but certainly not financially the smart thing to do if you had written down the pros and cons, right? I've been in those situations, and I just have nothing but respect for folks that take action like that. There's some obvious parity as we go into what may or may not currently be defined as a recession right now. If somebody's listening to this, and they're sitting in a cubicle thinking about taking a leap, or maybe, either bringing their clients with them or starting a brand new thing from scratch, what advice can you give a younger entrepreneur based on your experience opening your own business in 2008?
The first question is, why are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you running away, or are you running to something? And I find that far too many people today are running away. They're not running to. They have an ill-defined idea of exactly what they have. They've got an idea of, this is what I want to do. Great. What's your marketing plan? I don't have one. What's your branding plan? What's a branding plan? How are you set up for accounting? How much money do you have in the bank? Because it's going to take you 90 to 120 days for your first job to land. Then you have to sit there and do the job. Then you have to wait 30 days to get paid for it. Can you sit around for 6 months or more before you start earning money? And a lot of people need to sit down and have those hard, heart-to-heart, conversations with themselves and say, am I doing this for ego? Am I doing this because I think that it's a better way of life? Or am I doing this because I really feel that there's a better way for me to serve my clients? I know that I can add value. My clients think that I'm valuable, and I know that I'm going to be able to serve them better by doing things a different way. And I think that that's really what the heart-to-heart conversation a lot of people have to have, because entrepreneurship is not for sissies. You're gonna have a lot of hard days where you're gonna bang your head against the wall. You're gonna sit there and have your head in your hands, and you're gonna sit there going, "Am I gonna make payroll? Am I gonna be able to pay vendors? Am I gonna survive another month?" And that feeling doesn't go away. And the challenges may be different. But you know what? The life of an entrepreneur has a lot of gratification. There's a lot of great things that goes along with it, but it's not all, blue sky and roses that everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think that I really became an entrepreneur. I think my business was a hobby. And then there was various stages of when I got deeper and deeper into becoming an entrepreneur. But I really don't think I was an entrepreneur until I had multiple times gotten notifications from the IRS, or I had figured out how to make rent within 24 hours, or ultimately the decision to end up buying down my partners, who, God bless them, I still love them as brothers. They were in my wedding, but they decided to go on and do other things in their life. And I remember the moment, I remember the night of like, okay, it's either this thing disappears, the gym being Chicago Light Fitness, this thing disappears basically tomorrow, or can I even imagine a universe where this place doesn't exist? We had moved, we had cease and desists, and we had, the IRS writing letters. And I know what you mean. I really do remember like, oh, this is what it's like. This is the game that you have to choose to get up and play every single day to make it forward. How can you make it a little bit easier to play that game for folks that might be listening? Like, what is the service that you provide for your clients?
Well, I mean, the service that we provide for our clients is we do internal communications. We find that most companies have some idea of how to communicate with their customers. Some do it better, some do it worse. Some people it's all about me, and some of them have figured out that it's all about them. But for the most part, most companies do a horrific job communicating internally. And internal communication is costing the US economy billions upon billions upon billions of dollars annually. Here's a couple statistics. 70% of change management initiatives fail because of poor internal communication. Companies as big as 100,000 employees waste $62 million a year because of ineffective internal communication. Companies of 100 employees, 420,000. The numbers are staggering. And the more we can understand that, if we can figure out how to communicate in a way that not, I said it, how come they don't understand it? To wait a second here. Did everybody understand what the goal is? Does everybody understand what the vision, the purpose, why we're doing what they're doing, why their effort matters, what they individually need to do in order to help us all achieve our goal? And what do we need to do to take care of the customer? And if we can change the mindset to that, as companies, we have a far better chance of surviving than if we're just sitting there going, well, I sent a memo.
Sure. It's astonishing to me, having been a part of a corporate culture, 100,000 or more, probably quite a bit more employees. It's astonishing how much money they're able to make when the communication is so disjointed. It's not like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. It's like the left finger doesn't know what the finger next to it is even doing. It's insane. And I'll borrow from a mentor of mine, Alex Charfen. Alex Charfen has said, I've heard him say it multiple times, the very first day a new draftee rookie shows up to an NFL locker room, he knows exactly what his lifetime goal is: to go to the Hall of Fame. He knows exactly what he would need to do to get there. He would need to win multiple championships. He knows exactly what his team needs to do this year to win this championship. And then he knows what he needs to do today to help his team to win a championship this year. And even for a company with 3, 4, 5 employees, I've multiple times heard people unable to say that the people on their team know how the steps that they need to produce in order to make their team, their company, go towards the championship or the Hall of Fame. And so it's just simple steps like that that seem to be so impactful. What would you recommend at like a very small, like, what can I do today if I'm listening to this as an entrepreneur and I realize my team doesn't know how to go to the Super Bowl? What are some things that I can implement right now that might help us to get there?
Well, the first thing you need to do is say, is the words that I've printed in 200-point font on the wall what we actually believe?
Sure.
I mean, how many of us have gone away on these wonderful retreats to Aspen or Maui or, Cabo San Lucas, whatever, sat in a room with somebody like me with great big whiteboards and come up with these mission, vision, value statements that mean nothing because they're just words on a wall. They're never lived, they're never thought of, they're never acted upon. And the first thing I can say as a company is live your values. Talk about them all the time. If you think you're over communicating, you probably are not. If you think that everybody understands everything, they probably don't. From the minute you bring an employee on, and I'm talking about the second they sign the letter, forget the first day of the work, forget the onboarding process. From the minute they sign the letter to say, hey, welcome aboard, there needs to be a set of emails or videos or whatever that says, hey, welcome to the thing. As the CEO of the company, this is why I started the company. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing today. This is how I'm excited about bringing you onto the company. These are the type of things we'd really like to have you help us do. And this is how your department works with these other departments in order to be able to achieve the goals. And these are the things that we believe as a company are going to enable us to do that. Larger companies, it becomes more sophisticated. It becomes more challenging. If you're bringing on 8,000 new employees, it's a little bit different process than if you're bringing in 3.
Sure.
But the more you can do that, the more you can think of saying, okay, how do I make this personalized for the individual? How can we enable this person to sit there and say, okay, this is what the vision, goals, and beliefs mean to me, and how I belong and how I am part of the process and how what I do matters. And if companies live that in their team meetings, in their decision making, and how they buy equipment, how they deal with their customers, how they deal with their vendors, we have a far better chance of companies succeeding and thriving.
Yeah. And so just to give you an idea of, so in my past, I've helped folks at the very small level, at gyms, chiropractors, small teams, under 30 employees. And I've helped them to identify a mission and core values that was already in them, and we just revealed it, right? And so it seems very easy for me to imagine if I'm running a small team to say, okay, well, this is what I already am. I won't beleaguer you with my core values at the moment, but my core values are unique to me. They are the best definition I can think of, or something that I already was before I figured them out. And it sounds like when I'm listening to you talk about the larger organizations, it may in fact be the case that we have to create core values that maybe not every employee will walk in with. We just need to espouse them and train them on them enough to maybe adapt to them. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. I mean, here's a perfect example. We're working with a company right now that they're a 55,000 employee company. They just bought another company that has 8,000 employees. And we're dealing with a situation where we're dealing with a merger and acquisition. We have two separate cultures, different philosophies, different versions, different values. And how do we get those 8,000 people that have always done it this way to understand, hey, wait a second, now you're part of this 55,000 person company. First of all, welcome. Second of all, we're excited to have you join us. Third, let me tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And how we do that is we build internal, private, and secure podcasts for companies. So these are internal facing only podcasts, and they're designed to be able to be stream only, to be shared with people within the organization. So people have an ongoing asynchronous ability to go back and listen to ideas, thought processes from people from all over the organization, people from HR, people from legal, from marketing, sales, corporate, all different ideas and say, listen, this is what we do. This is how we do it. These are the things. And if you have any questions, here's my number and how you can get in touch with me. And what we do then is enable those people to take that information and have the group leaders have conversations with their teams to say, okay, what does this mean to you? How does this drill down to these 15 or 20 people based on who they are, where they are, and where they are in the organization, and be able to talk about compare and contrast of where we were, where we are, and where we're going together. And it's not a simple process. It's not a fast process, but what it is something where a traditional onboarding package is you take somebody, you take them out of the office, you put them in a room somewhere for 5 days, and you blast them with corporate culture. 30%, if you're lucky, of that information is retained a month later, probably less. Okay. They're inundated. As soon as they get out of that room, they're put into a place and they forget what they've done. And if that information is not ongoing and if it's not reinforced, it's forgotten, and people go back to the way things were. When things aren't the way they are, they get frustrated and then they leave. So you're dealing with $3,000 to $4,000 per employee. That's $24 million. And that $24 million could be money ill spent, because if 30, 40, 50% of those people walk out the door, it's going to cost you much more than that to replace them. The ongoing podcast retains people, retains them for longer, engages them in more things, makes them feel that they're part of the company a lot sooner, and it's done for a fraction of the cost.
I just love that. I think that's a brilliant way to streamline and kind of carry into the future something that I believe strongly in, and I think many, many entrepreneurs do. One thing that we've tried to do is and not just me, but the people I've worked with, have tried to pick unique values and phrasing and words that stand out. I work with somebody, Billy Jones. Shout out to Billy Jones. He was the first podcast guest on the show. And Billy has a gym that's called, I think it's Lion's Den. And so everything that they do, it had this theme of, this Lion's Den, the pride walks alone, and this, the pride walks together, and just things like that. Billy, I'm butchering this, buddy. But the concept being, if you come in and my core value is grow or die, I might share that with McDonald's. If my core value is, the customer always comes first, that might just go in one ear and out another. But when there's some, uniqueness to it, when there's a shared language within a culture, has that been anything reflected in your experience? I don't want to just throw my ideas at you. I'm curious if that's something you've seen, or if different styles of this have worked more effectively than others.
The key word is brand story, because it's a matter of getting hooks. It's all about creating emotional hooks, because we need to sit there and say, you're going to have a different frame of reference walking into the situation than I am.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a matter of creating a shared context. And if we have a brand story to sit there and say, look, this is where we are. This is where we came from. This is where we are. This is what we've learned along the way. Here's the challenges, opportunities. Here's the things that we've learned along the way. Here's where we're going, and be able to bring that into a story and use the vernacular that you're using to be able to incorporate that into the story, so people have those emotional hooks. I'm going to tell the story in 6 months differently than you are. employee A and employee X are going to tell the story completely different. But if the basic tenets of the story are the same, if the ideology is the same, if the values are the same, it doesn't matter, because it's a matter of sitting there going, okay, if we can create something that's make the story your own, everybody's going to hear it. They're going to internalize it, recall it, retell it, but they need to be able to retell it in their own language, or else it's not theirs. And when it's theirs, then they become part of the process. Then they become part of the solution. Then it's part of their responsibility to make sure that the goals are met. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and it sounds like they feel like they're a part of that tribe that's then living it. That's a really, really terrific idea. And as a podcaster, I'm embarrassed to say that I hadn't considered an internal podcast until you just said that. It's such a terrific tool. Have you seen this? So you talk about a merger, and again, that's something I hadn't really considered either. These are folks that are already working, and you're just acquiring a company. You know, you're not hiring them individually, right? Have you seen like a measurable improvement in past with these types of kind of culture clashes or culture combinations?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can see companies that do it well versus companies that don't. There's no question about it. You know, most companies, when they do mergers and acquisitions, just throw people together. They really do. They just sit there and say, you know what? You're now part of the big company. Figure it out. In Canada years ago, and I'm talking probably somewhere around 97, 98, 99, Canadian Airlines went out of business and ended up being folded into Air Canada. To this day, you can look at employees and know who came from which culture.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking 22, 23 years later. We can still tell who are the people that came from the Canadian Airlines that had a very distinct culture and a very distinct way of doing things versus the Air Canada mentality. And I'm sure that it's dissipating because most of those people are at the stage where they're retiring. But, you know, for years upon years upon years, when I flew to, I could go out and says, you're ex-Canadian, aren't you? Like, and you get this big smile on their face. And they have this remembering of what it was like when they used to work under the Canadian culture. And now they're forced to work under Air Canada, which is a very different philosophy. And, you know, when you look at things like that, there tends to be a very dichotomy of us versus them. And that us versus them, as I said, 22, 23 years later is completely different. I remember Kinko's corporate, and I ended up working with them for a couple of years. And when we worked with them, we went down to Vegas, and there was 8,000 salespeople and 8,000 ops people. And we were put in a room and we were said, okay, go in all day sales meetings, all day ops meetings. And every once in a while they'd open up the door, the wall between us, and they'd bring us together for certain sections. And I'm in the marketing meetings and the sales meetings, and they're talking about value and customer relationships and all the things that you need to talk about, you know, with sales and marketing people. And I went to the washroom and I said, you know what, I'm going to stop into the ops meeting on the way back. And it was all about cutting costs and grinding vendors and, you know, and doing what it takes to drive revenue and all the things. And it was a complete dichotomy within the same organization. And it was almost like we were two different companies. And you wondered why sales and ops managers throughout the entire system hated each other. A lot of cases, they hated each other because they were being compensated completely differently. Their vision and their values were completely different. You know, what was expected of them was completely different. And therefore, you know, they were constantly fighting about what a good job and what a profitable job meant.
Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. I'm super excited that today's show is brought to you by the Global School of Entrepreneurship. Most practicing entrepreneurs cannot take 2 years away from their growing business to attend a full-time campus-based program or spend every weekend away from family and business for a couple of years. Finally, there's an accredited program specifically designed for you to work on and grow your business while completing your MBA. The GSE MBA complements the needs and schedules of someone actively engaged in an entrepreneurial venture while still covering the accredited curriculum expected from any MBA program. The Global School of Entrepreneurship offers a unique offering called the Mastermind to MBA program. It consists of 10 students who work together in a forum-style cohort and meet every other week for a year. The GSE MBA helps you develop skills in critical thinking and strategic planning. Students also develop competencies in leadership, decision-making, and communication with both employees as well as the important stakeholders in your business. You will be exposed to world-class academics and fascinating guest lecturers. You'll work on your business while working in your business. Students are guided by real-world entrepreneurs with decades of experience starting and scaling businesses just like yours. Best of all, I'm beyond proud to announce that the Global School of Entrepreneurship has agreed to offer one Spear and Clover listener a scholarship to join an upcoming Mastermind to MBA cohort. They are looking for someone just like you to bring a unique perspective to the program, and they are accepting applications right now. To learn more and to apply, simply go to www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Don't miss this opportunity to level yourself up and surround yourself with other like-minded entrepreneurs just like you. Once again, to apply for the GSE MBA Spear and Clover Scholarship, simply visit www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. Yeah, that's fascinating. It's just so interesting to hear it on that scale. So what inspired you? Clearly, you're passionate about this. You've been doing this for years, and I'm smiling right now just watching you talk about something that you love to do. And so when did you know, not the nuts and bolts of the resume part, but when did you know that this was something you were super passionate about it? And have you given much thought to what about it gets you so excited?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved brand. I've always loved the philosophy of brand and how do you tell a brand story, even back in my sales days, because it was all about how do we tell a story that resonates with the audience that's in front of you. It doesn't matter if I'm doing keynote addresses. It doesn't matter if I'm on a stage of 200 or 5,000. It doesn't matter if it's a corporate audience or if it's a government ministry. It's how do I enable people to tell their story more effectively? And I've always felt that way. I've always had that ability. I was lucky growing up. When I was a young kid, I was blessed. One of my dad's best friends, who I considered an uncle, he and his brother were pitchmen for some of the best webinar systems in the world. These guys sold for a guy by the name of Tommy Vu, who sold real estate programs. And if you go back on the internet and search Tommy Vu real estate. Tommy would sit there and he had TV commercials with this girl in bikini on either arm in front of the big house with the Rolls Royce in front of it. You two with no money down can have all the money you want.
I remember.
And it was,
I think I remember
pitching
him.
right from the early 80s. It just reeked of, you too can be a millionaire, if you just follow my system. And, Sam and his brother Sheldon were the guys that came into town to give you the free webinar or the free seminar that day. So you would go and buy the course. So you'd buy the $25,000 course. And they sold more of these courses than the next 15 or 18 guys that they had combined.
Wow.
And these are the guys I learned from. These are the guys I learned how to tell a story, how to listen, how to, bring an audience with you, how to make sure your audience is paying attention and be able to talk about pace and tone and tonality and all the wonderful things that come along with it. When I'm a kid, I'm probably 12 or 13 years old at this time and got to travel with these guys in the summer and watch some of the best do what they do best. And for me, it was looking at that. It got me to believe that the power of story and the power of getting people to believe. And people only believe when they're bought in. It's not when you're bought in. It's not because I think that what I'm selling is the most wonderful thing in the world. It's when you think that what I'm selling is the most wonderful thing in the world to you. And that's probably the trigger point.
Yeah, it's funny. Have you read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers?
Oh, yeah.
Because listening to you talk, I'm like, you're like the Bill Gates of corporate communication. Like, you're 12 years old, you're learning the groundwork. It's funny because while you're talking, I'm thinking about, I feel like communication is the oil in an engine, right? And I think it's really easy if you think about the big horsepower number that maybe sales can produce or the efficiency number that maybe ops can produce. But neither of those things can exist without that oil of effective communication between the two to lubricate the process. So like, you're doing such a good job of kind of illuminating that, but it's so hard to imagine getting the horsepower people focused on the oil or getting the efficiency people focused on the oil. How have you found, is it just the communication with the podcasting that brings those two groups together? And is it just taking time?
No, it's
such a long tail, right?
Yeah. Communication happens at a variety of different levels. Okay. You talk about sales and ops. So let's have a story about sales and ops.
Sure.
Organizations sit there and say, we've got salespeople, good, bad, and ugly, that are working on 100% commission. That means on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, these people have to hit targets that sometimes are ridiculously stupid in order to not only make their bonuses, but to get on the annual trips or whatever it is. So some of them, and I'm not saying all of them because I've been that salesperson, I've been in this position, will lie, cheat, and steal and do whatever they need to do in order to make sure that they close that thing down before the month of the quarter ends. When they do that, they get rewarded for that. They absolutely get rewarded for it. But the problem is, in a lot of cases, they're creating chaos in their wake because all of a sudden, procurement's having to scramble to get, to be able to get whatever they need to get for operations to do what operations needs to do. Operations entire system, because they haven't let these, sales hasn't let operations know that this is coming down the pike. All of a sudden, the entire system of operations has been thrown a monkey wrench because now they have a whole bunch of stuff that they need to produce that they weren't ready to produce. They're either not geared up equipment wise, they're not geared up people wise, and all of a sudden they're getting yelled at because they can't produce something that they didn't even know was coming down the pipe. So when companies, work that way, because sales managers and, quite honestly, C-suite and everybody in between is being bonused on this because the sales reps are doing what they're doing because they're bringing in new logos and they're bringing in top dollar value. The question is, what's the bottom line on this? In terms of people quitting, in terms of, extra high price shipping costs, because all of a sudden stuff has to come in overnight. What happens when you have overtime that comes, all these things? You get people getting sick. You get people getting hurt because they're pushing through machinery. What happens when jobs get rushed and all of a sudden QC gets missed? Something gets shipped out the door because it has to be out by a certain date and it's wrong. And all of a sudden you have a client that's irked and they're not willing to pay for it. You have all these different things that happen because a company is rewarding sales reps for bringing stuff in, and sales reps say, hey, listen, it's not my problem once it walks in the door. And if communication and if compensation happened based on net profit, not on gross profit, it might do a thing. This all of a sudden sales would work with ops more effectively and let procurement know what's coming down the pipe and work with their customers to get a more reasonable timeline on stuff and make sure that if there's a problem, they're following up on it before it is a problem to let the customer know what's going on. So companies need to take a look at what are the overall policies, processes, procedures that are happening within their company, and where's the breakdown? Where's the cracks in the dike that if left to fester are all of a sudden going to become great big fissures and all of a sudden going to lead to a dike breach. And I think that that's where the challenge is. So yes, a podcast works well for that, because if you're dealing with 5, 10, 30, 50, 100, 200,000 employees, it's a great way to talk about health and safety, operations, new product development, change management, all sorts of different issues. However, there also has to be the thought of saying, okay, why are things happening? Why are we at the end of every single month running into these chaos? And why is this job that should be at 35% margin all of a sudden at 10?
Yeah, I think that's very valuable. I want to zoom back in to a lot of folks listening to this probably don't have 5, 10, 50,000 employees. So a lot of the folks listening to this may be either getting ready to start a company, or maybe they have a company with 5, 10, 15, 20 people total. And I think there's some pretty easy sort of logical steps that I could take in my own head, but maybe if you could outline a little bit, what are some concepts that those folks can use as they're setting up these systems so that they can avoid the same type of pitfalls we see at the big scale?
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is technology is only as good as the people that are using it. And I think that small companies have an advantage of you can huddle people up and you can have conversations and you can get people together and actually enable departments to understand what's coming down the pipe, what's happening, and be able to sit there and say, listen, we have to take this piece of machinery down on maintenance for 6 weeks because we've been stressing it out. We needed to get new parts. We're ordering it in, but we need to get this piece of equipment out. So please don't sell this solution for the next 6 or 8 weeks, or at least let your customers know that this is happening. Sales, on the other hand, needs to sit there and say, look, I've got this, and this job that I'm working on. Maybe all 3 are going to come in the door. Maybe one will, but you know what? At least you guys know what's going on. Finance needs to sit there and say, look, I know you're working on these big projects, but these guys are not credit worthy. Let's have a conversation and be able to look at some more creative solutions for these guys to be able to help them with their credit worthiness before this stuff comes in the door and you become absolutely disappointed because we're not going to supply them with a credit. So there needs to be that level of communication within the organization so nobody gets blindsided.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because even just while you're just talking there, it reminded me of when I'm working at TGI Fridays. And it's like, I feel like as a small business, I could learn almost everything I need to know just by sitting at a Friday night at like a busy restaurant. They're 86 the shrimp. We're out of the shrimp. Hey, push this soup. We're running low. Hey, we're running out of this. I'm helping you see them helping each other. It's just out to dinner the other night with my wife, Donna. And literally 2 things I was asking off the menu and he knew right away, oh no, we just ran out of that. We got this, we don't have that. And the communication between those departments, they do daily huddles. When I was a young man, I was working at TGI Fridays. Every single shift, we're doing a daily huddle. I think that definitely, it's those fundamentals of communication that it's so difficult, seems like, to scale. Another thing that's interesting is, as you're talking, it occurs to me that so many entrepreneurs, at least that I've met, and I'm not talking about only small businesses, even larger businesses, they actually just haven't asked themselves a lot of the questions that their employees may run across. And so without doing that work first, it's almost like, well, maybe they could solve that problem on the fly, but certainly your employee can't unless you've thought about it, codified it, and then put it out to them in some form or another, maybe similar to the podcast, right? Is that something that you help folks to do as well?
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy with leadership is leaders need to wake up every morning and ask themselves 2 questions. What can I do to help my team be better? And what can I do to take the impediments out of their way? And I think that that's a philosophy of leadership that needs to be incorporated in large, small, medium-sized companies. It's not about how much paper you can push. It's not about how busy you are. Your job is to take care of people as a leader. If you can take care of people, they will take care of the business. If you sit there and micromanage and assume that your people are dumb and they don't know what they're doing, they're going to do very little because they're going to assume you're going to do it for them. So why should they? If you empower your people and if you give them the tools to be better and you ask the right questions and you listen to understand instead of listening to talk, you would be far better off. Here's a perfect example. In a meeting, and it doesn't matter how many people are in the meeting. I think it's Jeff Bezos who said it's a 2-pizza meeting. If you can't feed everybody in the meeting with 2 pizzas, you got too many people in the meeting.
I love that.
And you're going to have to, somebody's going to have to fact check me. I think it's Jeff Bezos, but I love that saying.
Yeah.
But the philosophy is leaders speak last. The question is, what do you people think? Here's the idea. What do you think? And then as a leader, shut your mouth, open your ears. Don't give away your ideas. Don't give away what you think, and listen to what people in the room think and allow them to have that conversation and say, okay, now that I've gotten all your opinions, these are the things that we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it. And be able to incorporate the ideas that they came up with, and don't come in with preconceived ideas. Listen to the experts that you've hired, that you pay a lot of money to know what they know and see what they see, because they see and know things that you don't know. And if you incorporate their ideas, if you incorporate what they see as challenges, what they think is going to impact the business and the customer and the vendor better, and bring that into the overall final decision, first of all, you're going to get buy-in from everybody in the room. Second of all, you're going to have a much better solution.
That's brilliant. So when it's all said and done, what is the impact that Ben Baker wants to make on the world? Ben
Baker's impact was, I want companies to run more effectively. I really want companies to run more effectively. And quite honestly, that adds to the bottom line. There's, as I said before, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that are being wasted every single year. And that's after tax dollars. And if I can help companies be more impactful, if I can help them communicate more effectively, keep, great employees from running out the door, if I can help them, bring in brand new great employees, and if I can help them have more smooth and effective processes within their own company, that's going to lead to the better bottom line. And that's the impact that I bring to the table.
I love it. There are 2 questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. Ben, are you ready to have those questions now?
Sure.
All right. The first question is, with access to unlimited financial capital, how would you profitably grow your current business?
That's a good question. With unlimited capital, because you know what? I don't think it would take unlimited capital. I truly don't think, because I don't need to be $100 million business and don't want to be $100 million business. What I would probably do is I would spend far more money in marketing, and I would probably bring in a great virtual assistant for myself. I think are the 2 things that I would do that would greatly impact my business, to be able to sit there and be able to free up my time so I can concentrate on being where the clients need me to be, instead of dealing with some of the minutia stuff that still plagues me on a regular basis.
Has it been difficult, as a follow-up question? That's a great answer. Has it been difficult for you to scale yourself to others as representatives to do what you do, as opposed to just like a VA? Have you tried that? Has that been a struggle?
There's been different philosophies. I mean, over COVID, with a lot of different businesses, we retracted as everybody did. We sat there and said, okay, what do we need to be? As we've come out the other side, and as we've codified in terms of where we want to be moving forward, I tend to outsource far more than I bring in people interior. My podcast is 6 years old. I've been podcasting for 10. I don't produce my own podcast. I have a team of people. The major company, Poditize, they're based out of LA. They do a phenomenal job. They've got 65 or 70 people in the Philippines that do a phenomenal job every single week, making me sound and look as good as I do.
And you look great, and you sound great.
Thank you. I've got, people that are copywriters that do copywriting for me. I've got, photographers. I've got videographers. I've got all sorts of different people that I can use and rely on, that they're experts at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I pay them for the work that they do. I bring them in as I need them. And when I don't need them, I write them a check and say, thank you very much,
Mm-hmm.
and call them when I need them again.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that that's how I scale my business, through having great experts that I can bring in and trust and utilize as I need them, instead of going to a customer and say, well, I've got this designer who's free. They're not exactly what you need them to do, but you know what? They're the ones that I have on payroll right now, and they're available. So we're going to give the work to them.
It's interesting. The second question is, if you had to quit doing everything you've ever done professionally and start something totally new from scratch, what do you think that might be?
That's a fun thing. I've always thought I'd love to be a demolition expert.
I love it. That's one of my favorite answers I've gotten, Ben.
I just, if I could go back and start all over again, as a young man, and could go through all the training that needed to be done in order to do it, to be one of these people that just levels buildings.
Yeah.
Be the person who knows exactly where to put those sticks of dynamite, and watch things go boom.
Oh,
and travel the world and watch things go boom.
Yeah.
I think that could be a lot of fun, but it's probably never going to happen. But if to do it all over again, and if it was something completely different that was outside of my bailiwick, that would be it.
Yeah. Oh, what a terrific answer, Ben. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your clearly depth of and broadness and depth of wisdom. Where can folks find you? What are the names of your books? Plug everything you got, Ben. I think a lot of folks listening to this will want to get in touch with you. Sure.
There's the best way to get in touch with me is either through LinkedIn or through my website. And I'll give you the website because you'll find everything on the website. It's yourbrandmarketing.com. And if you go, there's an ebook section under publications where there's a free chapter of my 2 books, Powerful Personal Brands, A Hands-On Guide to Understanding Yours, and Leading Beyond a Crisis, a conversation about what's next. There's also 11 or 12 different ebooks that I've written that are all available there. There's access to my podcast is there. Actually, the 2 podcasts I have, we just started a new one called Gnaw on This. That's just came out over the last few weeks. And everything to do with my internal podcasting, consulting business, everything is right there at yourbrandmarketing.com. And it will push you to my social media. Awesome. Well, Ben, all those links will be in the show notes below. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Ben and learn from his stuff. Ben, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great pleasure having you on the show. Hey, my pleasure. And I give people this offer. On my website, you can book a 30-minute free consultation. If there's someone who wants to book a 30-minute call just to sit there and talk about what if, let's have that conversation. And then we can sit there and say, is there ways that we can help you? I love it. Thank you very much, Ben. Ben Baker, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/spearandclover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.